hazards faced by seafarers, enclosed spaces are the most deadly. Deadly because, in most cases, entry procedures have not been followed and the consequences are normally fatal. But the majority of people who die are not those who first enter an enclosed space and then get into difficulty. It is those who attempt to rescue them. They die because they are not trained, because instinct takes over and becomes more powerful than the knowledge gained from training. They die because instinct kills. An emergency rescue has to be carried out by people who know exactly what they are doing. And success is easily measured. The people they bring out are either alive or they're not. What often makes the difference is the degree of planning and preparation that should take place days, weeks, even months before. Recognition that working safely in enclosed spaces requires a clear management plan. That all enclosed spaces on board should be identified and any risks assessed. That those risks will include anything that might compromise the effectiveness of emergency procedures. In spaces where the atmosphere may present foreseeable risks, a backup party with breathing equipment is essential. But pointless if the space is too small to allow them in wearing BA sets. Alternatives must be considered well in advance. Is there room to erect a tripod? Or could the rescue be carried out by attaching a shackle and winch instead? If that isn't possible either, you don't just walk away. Something has to be done, because if you can't get them out, they should not be going in. Emergency procedures form a fundamental part of the risk assessment process. They should be specific to each entry and detail exactly what the procedures are, what equipment will be needed, and the responsibilities of personnel. Emergency procedures are also a critical component of any safe system of work or action plan. Spaces such as deep tanks, double bottoms, are extremely confined, and getting people out of them is never going to be easy. And that is precisely why rescue techniques and the use of emergency equipment must be fully understood and practiced on a regular basis. Ideally, rescue equipment should be dedicated to rescue. There are no rules where rescue equipment is concerned. It is up to the ship's management team to decide what equipment is needed on board and what should be taken to each enclosed space entry. And that will depend on the initial risk assessment of all the enclosed spaces on board. So what does basic rescue equipment consist of? Tripod or quadpod, lightweight, sturdy, easy to erect. When fitted with a man-riding hoist, it's the easiest and most effective way of getting people out of spaces such as ballast or cargo tanks. A shackle. Where lack of space prevents the use of a tripod, a shackle bolted to or through adjacent metalwork can be as effective. And in both cases, a rescue harness should be used by the rescuers and the person to be rescued. Breathing apparatus, self-contained, or an external air supply where access is limited. A BA control board, so that names of personnel entering can be recorded and air supplies monitored. A guideline, important for any rescue, but vital if visibility is poor. Then, the equipment needed once casualties have been located. Resuscitator, first aid kit, and rescue stretcher.
Having the right equipment on board the ship is very important. The next thing is, can you use that equipment? And you only find out if you can use it by training with it. Isn't it strange? We do training for fire, we do training for grounding, we do training for man overboard, but what about enclosed spaces? And yet more people are being killed in enclosed spaces than in all the others. Realistic exercises in different places, in different situations, and some of them can be difficult, but that's what it's all about.
To make sure drills are realistic, they should reflect what would happen if the drill was actually a real emergency. To start with, the senior person controlling the entry will have the responsibility for sounding the alarm should an emergency occur. It could be the result of a known problem reported by the people inside, a sudden change in the atmosphere, an injury, or it could be that communication has been lost, and after an agreed period of time has elapsed, the alarm must be raised. The officer of the watch will already have details of the enclosed space entry. It is now his responsibility to sound the alarm. As in any emergency, he will stay on the bridge and coordinate the rescue. He must be fully briefed and given any information concerning possible dangers to the ship or other crew members. Responding to a general alarm should be second nature on every ship. Basic emergency equipment such as breathing apparatus and a resuscitator should already be on hand. Other items must be immediately available, along with additional personnel if required. In most enclosed space entries, a backup team should already be in attendance, but the rescue party itself could be working elsewhere on the ship, as in this case. The team must be thoroughly briefed by the senior person already on the scene. The team will want to know the identity of each person inside, exactly what task was being performed and where, what equipment was taken into the space, and the communication status. When was the last atmosphere check carried out? What were the readings? Even though time may be critical, the rescuers must first ensure their own safety. That starts with an on-the-spot risk assessment. Has the space been ventilated? Has the atmosphere been tested? What was identified by the risk assessment? What control measures are in place? Has the space been isolated from other systems? Has electrical equipment been isolated? What special tools, equipment, or PPE will be needed? It may seem a slow process. There may well be critically injured people and time is running out, but the rescuers are not going to be of any use if crucial things are overlooked and they end up needing to be rescued themselves. If breathing apparatus is required, then the standard procedures of tagging and recording pressure readings must be followed. Once everyone is ready, the rescue team can enter the space. In some situations, a rescue from a deep tank, for example, the tripod is the easiest and often the only way of getting people out of enclosed spaces. Depending on the space, it may also be the safest way of getting people in. The original emergency could have resulted from fire, heat exhaustion, smoke, toxic fumes. The rescue team must take care and use the principles of dynamic risk assessment, which means continually monitoring the environment. If there is restricted visibility, care should be taken to avoid injuries from slips, trips, and falls. When a casualty is found and identified, the rescue party must always assume that he or she is still alive and, if necessary, provide immediate medical attention. The most serious condition should be dealt with first, in this case, trying to restore breathing. The officer of the watch should be kept fully informed at every stage of the rescue. All members of the rescue team should be fully competent in providing first aid. Having got to the casualty, it's not going to help if the wrong medical attention is given and the situation ends up a whole lot worse. But first aid apart, the casualties have still got to be taken out of the space, and that requires specialist training. Initial training may be shore-based, using simulators able to create risk-free, realistic scenarios, including fire and smoke. Basic equipment can be introduced and rescue techniques explored, but the training must be evaluated on board by carrying out drills involving the ship's own personnel and onboard equipment, and using the enclosed spaces on that particular ship. This casualty has been stabilized with oxygen and has no injuries. Since he is near to the exit point, the rescue harness is used to aid retrieval with a fore and aft lift. Once at the exit point, the harness is attached to the man-riding hoist and the casualty removed safely to the upper deck. For casualties who are deeper into the space, using a specially designed rescue stretcher is the best method of recovery. The casualty is secured using the webbing straps, and the stretcher moved towards the lightning hole in a controlled fashion. Here, the hole is too narrow to accommodate the casualty on his back, and so he is turned onto his side. It is essential that the straps are properly secured in position to keep the resuscitator in place during the maneuver, and to eliminate the danger of the casualty falling out and sustaining further injury. One of the rescuers moves through an adjacent lightning hole in order to get a better hold of the casualty and stretcher before lifting the stretcher clear and moving off toward the exit point. The casualty is then attached to the man-riding hoist. A rescuer then follows the stretcher during the hoist to make sure the casualty does not receive any further injuries resulting from contact with the sides of the space. When the rescue operation is complete, the master or chief officer is notified and the ship can return to normal routine. Depending on the outcome and whether or not the ship is at sea, shore authorities may need to be notified and, if necessary, a medical evacuation organized in accordance with the ship's onboard plan. Once the equipment has been checked and stored away ready for use, regardless of the outcome, all aspects of the rescue drill should be reviewed. Could things have been done better? Were the procedures effective, or should changes be made? Was the communication as it should have been? Did everyone understand their role? And then, the bottom line, had that not been a drill, but a real situation, would lives have been saved or lost? Enclosed spaces on ships are a fact of life. They come with a job, but far too many people are dying in them. In some cases, death occurs quickly, sometimes instantly. But many seafarers do have the chance of survival, provided that correct emergency procedures are followed, provided that the rescue party works as a team with the knowledge not just of how to do the task, but of the capabilities of the equipment used. Best practice requires an enclosed space rescue team to be established on each ship, and that team members train together with dedicated rescue equipment. seafarers could be saved, provided that the training and the expertise to get them out is there when needed.